We're starting a new series tonight about 7 things the Lord hates. And this is from Proverbs chapter 6, verses 16 through 19. And tonight I want us to kind of get an overview of these things and how they are connected together. When we look at Proverbs chapter 6, verses 16 through 19, it says, "These 6 things the Lord hates. Yes, 7 are an abomination to him. A proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that are swift in running to evil, a false witness who speaks lies, and one who sows discord among brethren." Now, sometimes we can look at this and think that these are just a list of disconnected ideas of different sins that are really bad. Maybe they're the just ones that are particularly evil more than other sins. But that's not really the idea that we find here. These sins that he's talking about are all connected in some way. If you look at these, how they are listed, he actually kind of goes down the body a little bit, depending on where your hands are. But the first ones here, he talks about a proud look or haughty eyes, depending on your translation. The idea of the way that your eyes are looking down on others. Of course, that comes from the heart, but he's using these different parts of the body to point out the different sins. So he starts with the eyes, then he talks about the lying tongue. Then he talks about hands that shed innocent blood. Now, in this picture, the man has his hands down, but if he were to stretch his hands out straight out to the side, then that would be actually above his heart. And then there's a heart that devises wicked plans. And of course, we know that it's not the physical heart that devises wicked plans, but it's still the picture, right? That's it's also not the tongue that actually the lies come from. It's from the heart, from the mind. Okay, and so this idea that there's a heart that devises wicked plans, he's still going down the body. And then there are feet that are swift in running to evil. So you see that connection in these the way that he's describing these sins and their connections. But then the last 2 that he talks about, which are actually almost one, which is one reason why he could say there are 6, yes, 7, because the last 2 really are connected together, but it's actually a common way that we find in the scriptures. In several places, there's this type of poetry. There's this number, even this number, the next bigger number of something. But here it's a false witness who speaks lies, and one who sows discord among brethren. And those ideas are closely connected together. But so are the others, and we'll talk about that as we go. But this passage is not really standing alone. It follows another description here in Proverbs, and if we back up to verse 12 through 15, the verses right before the ones that we just read, he says, "A worthless person, a wicked man, walks with a perverse mouth. He winks with his eyes. He shuffles his feet. He points with his fingers. Perversity is in his heart. He devises evil continually. He sows discord. Therefore his calamity shall come suddenly. suddenly he shall be broken without remedy. And then we have what we just read, that there are 6 things the Lord hates, yes, 7, and he lists these things out. But do you see the similarity in what he talks about here and what we read in that list of things that the Lord hates? These are not listed in this order, but in this passage, these verses, but it's a very connected idea. So he winks with his eyes. So in the other, the eyes are a haughty look. They're giving this prideful look. And in this passage, he's winking with his eyes, or he's kind of it's all involved in deceiving or in leading people into discord. There's a perverse mouth, and we see that idea of the lying tongue in the next passage, and the things the Lord hates. He points with his fingers, so his hands are involved. Here, he doesn't talk about shedding innocent blood, and yet really the idea of being a false witness and pointing out this person did this, or making a false accusation to cause trouble. It's really a connected idea here. Perversity is in his heart, or he devises evil continually. One of the things the Lord hates is the heart that devises evil. He shuffles his feet. Now that sounds almost the opposite of he's quick to run to evil, but it's a very connected idea. It's still about the feet, and in this case, I believe the idea of shuffling his feet is that he's just kind of hanging around to do evil. He's not going about his business doing what he should be doing. Someone may have a better understanding of what shuffling his feet is about, but that's how I understand it in this passage at the moment. And eventually we find that he is sowing discord. That's what he's doing. And all of these things, what he's doing is sowing discord, which is where the things that the Lord hates ends up with. One who sows discord among brethren. So you see the connection between these two passages. He talks about these different parts of the body that are used in sin, and he talks about very similar ideas. And he says that person is going to be broken suddenly. God is going to punish him, and here's why: he hates these things. But when we look at these particular sins, we see in the previous passage that it's pretty much all involved in sowing discord, or making brethren to hate each other or to distrust each other, telling lies about people so that there's enmity between brethren. And so this is the focus of this passage. This whole section is really the focus is about sowing discord, that God hates that. But where does that come from? Why would anybody sow discord among brethren? It starts with pride. The proud look, the idea of being prideful, thinking you're better than others, and wanting to destroy others because of pride, is really a starting place for this sin. But you can't really sow discord among brethren by just being honest. You're going to bring about lies. So a lying tongue is going to come into this to promote yourself and your pride and to destroy others that you want to look less than you. Now, the next one we might think is almost disconnected, hands that shed innocent blood. And yet, when you think of destroying relationships, it may not even end at destroying relationships. In the Old Testament, we find that there were certain sins for which they were considered crimes, and there was a death penalty, and a false witness who told lies about someone could actually get them killed. We find that even with Jesus, right? There were false witnesses brought in to try to get him killed, although they couldn't agree. And so they ended up using Jesus' own testimony as the reason to put him to death, even though it was truthful testimony. But we find this a few times throughout the Old and New Testaments, where people used false witnesses in order to get someone killed because of their pride, because of them trying to get what they want and not considering others. And a heart that devises wicked plans. Well, why are you devising wicked plans? Because you think you're better than others, and you think that you should be able to get what you want, no matter how you get it. And so you devise a way in order to tear down those people, to make yourself get what you want, the respect you want, the things you want, whatever it may be. But because of your pride, you are devising these wicked plans. And feet that are swift in running to evil. When you have pride and you have made yourself into a liar, someone that has, won't stop at anything to get what you want, even to bring about the death of someone, or to just destroying relationships between people in order to get what you want. Well, why would you not be swift to run to evil wherever it is if you think you can get something out of it? That is the idea that we have here. And so the false witness who speaks lies and sows discord among brethren is doing all of this out of pride. They are bringing about bloodshed, violence. They are swift in running to evil, and they are devising wickedness in their hearts. So all of these sins are actually not just a disconnected list of various sins that God hates, but they are actually connected together. And the main thing that is accomplished through all of this sin is sowing discord among brethren. And the main reason behind these things is pride. So when we look at some of the other passages, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on it tonight, but in Proverbs 25, verse 18, talking about bearing false witness, he says, "A man who bears false witness against his neighbor is like a club, a sword, and a sharp arrow." You see the idea of being a false witness being connected with violence, with shedding blood. It's a violent act to bear false witness. In 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 3 through 5, we see some of these types of sins connected here as well. In verse 3 through 5 of 1 Timothy 6, it says, "If anyone teaches otherwise and does not consent to wholesome words, even the words of our Lord Jesus Christ, and to the doctrine which accords with godliness, he is proud, knowing nothing, but is obsessed with disputes and arguments over words, from which come envy, strife, reviling, evil suspicions, useless wranglings of men of corrupt minds and destitute of the truth, who suppose that godliness is a means of gain. From such, withdraw yourself." He says there are some people who are, they're Christians, right? He's talking about people who are, at least in appearance, they are Christians, They are teaching things, but they are not teaching things that are from Christ. And so he says those people are proud. And he says they have strife, or what comes from what they are doing comes strife and reviling. They're being false witnesses. They are lying about people. They are bringing discord among brethren. And in fact, I didn't highlight it here, but in verse 5, he also says, these people are destitute of the truth. That brings about this idea of lying as well. They do not care about the truth. They suppose that godliness is a means of gain. They are trying to get something out of this, and so they devise wicked plans in their heart to cause trouble through teaching things that are not from Christ. And it comes from pride. It comes from this desire to get something out of others. And so that's a very similar idea here that we find in Proverbs chapter 6. All right, we're going to go into these sins individually, even though they're connected together. But in this series, we'll take a look at each one because even individually, they are bad. But they are connected together. There's a reason they're listed together here. It's not some random list or some sins that are particularly worse than other sins, but they are connected together with this idea of causing strife or discord among brethren, and God hates that. And so we need to make sure that if we see ourselves falling into any of these, that we get away from it, we run away, especially from pride, because that's where most of the others start. If we can keep away from pride, we probably aren't going to fall into any of the others. If you're not prideful, you don't have much motive to lie about anything. It is mostly pride that causes us to lie, even when it's to defend ourselves or protect ourselves from shame. If we can stay away from pride, we can avoid the desire to cause others harm for our own gain, because we'll think highly of them rather than of ourselves. And so we'll take a look at these as we go, but hopefully this lesson helped you to see the connection between these different sins, and that God is focused on especially the sin of causing strife or discord among brethren. And these other sins are part of accomplishing that. Thank you very much.